and I was just reading about these two actors. What's his name? Stefan James and
Shamir
who's the
Anderson.
other one? And Shamir. They started like this thing called the Black Academy.
Hmm.
Talk a bit about just your thoughts about that, about where the Canadian film industry is heading, especially for Black people.
Yeah, I think those brothers are trailblazers,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really amazing seeing all they've done and all they continue to do. I think our industry, especially with the advent of streaming and how that's being brought to the forefront, I think the the call and the yearn for black content creators is only growing, and there
Mm-hmm.
is now a space. I've been doing this for 7 years. I did this right when I was 18, and it has not ever been a better time for diverse content creators.
The typical experience is just like sitting on your couch and just, you turn on Netflix and decide what to watch, and there's no like it's not like you don't have to think too much about it. Is there anything there that you think that we're losing?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's too early to say, but
Mm,
I think uh, certain movies are made for the theatrical experience, and I
mm,
really, really do believe that. I feel unfortunately, films that could be seen in the theaters will go straight to streaming. You know, like
mm,
a film with Mark Wahlberg and Anton Fuqua directed it. That went straight to streaming.
Mm-hmm.
mm.
When I watched that trailer, I'm like, this is a film that is meant to be watched in a movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
What is it? What is it about movie theaters, like in particular, that some movies work really well in movie theaters?
I think it's the scope and the scale. Like Fast and Furious is meant to be watched in a movie theater. Like the
Mm-hmm.
cars, explosions, all that crazy stuff, in a good way, is meant to be experienced in movie theaters. People don't understand movie theaters are an experience. We have the Dolby sound, the left and the right. You know what I mean? There's
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
certain ways films are mixed for that
Mm-hmm.
theatrical experience. Christopher
Mm-hmm.
Nolan makes films for that theatrical experience.
Mm-hmm. And do you have like any uh influences or certain directors, filmmakers you kind of look at, trying to emulate a bit, or just draw something from to put in your own creative process?
Yeah, I like Ryan Coogler. I think he's an incredible filmmaker. He did Fruitvale Station, Creed, and Black Panther. I
Mm-hmm.
think Barry
Mm.
Jenkins is good. I think Ava DuVernay is good. I think Christopher Nolan's great as well. Especially, I'm interested with filmmakers that have a unique voice and perspective
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
and tell a story in a good, unique way.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that you said Ava DuVernay, because I feel like in terms of not particularly going to film school or whatever, I think you guys kind of have the same story, because I don't believe Ava went to film school at all. She was
No,
just working around set. And then now you see what she is today, you're like, wow, like, she didn't go to film school. Like, what does that make you feel like also as yourself? Because you kind of have the same kind of story just in that sense.
hope and inspiration.
Yeah.
That someone didn't do it the traditional way and succeeded. It gives me confidence.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel also as if there are still barriers for a lot of like minority filmmakers in this industry to make it big, or do you feel like right now where we are in society, like those barriers are getting broken down as we speak? Like, where do you feel like the film industry is really at?
I think for us, I think barriers are being broken down.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a heavy response because, especially being a diverse filmmaker, we want the chance to just be good. Give
Mm.
us we imagine not having the chance to be good. Not even getting a chance to play. Now we have a chance to play, and then you're gonna see how good we are, and then hopefully more opportunities will come about. But I do believe it's changing, but I also do believe there's quite a ways to go.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Mm. What are some like Canada specific barriers that a filmmaker might face? Like apart from like being a minority and not coming from the typical background, but what are some Canadian specific, barriers?
I think lack of resources. It's hard to get resources because we're all going for the same funds, because a lot of it is public funding from the government. So I think you have to really rely on your own skill, grit, and entrepreneurial instincts to succeed in the industry.
And do you feel like that's where actually your business management kind of links a bit with your filmmaking?
You got it, fam.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because like I've, on a previous episode, I recommended a book that I was reading. It was arguing for like a larger population in Canada, and the author was discussing how the arts are really influenced by the fact that we have a really small market in comparison to our neighbor down the south. You know, just the fact that like if you're an artist in Canada, like if you're releasing something and like if it's curated for a Canadian audience, like compared to the US, you have like your audience is at least 10 times smaller or 8 times smaller. Like I think I think it's interesting that despite the fact that although like our population is growing, but despite the fact that there's still that disparity, things are changing. Like in terms of funding, like are most of the funds coming from the public sector, like the government, or like is there like private companies and private enterprises that are investing in creators these days?
I think here's more so the public funding. So Canada Arts Council, Toronto Arts Council, all these types of entities and organizations that will fund you. I think when it comes to private funding, maybe it's a company hiring you to maybe do like a commercial or something like that. That's maybe where I can hear private funding coming into play.
Yeah. And what is it like just in terms of the first time ever you're paid as a filmmaker? Like first time ever. What does that feel like to develop a skill as a hobby but then actually get paid for it?
It's the best feeling in the world because these are things that I probably would have done for free. And it's a good feeling to be compensated for your art too. That means there's a dollar value associated with your name, which can help you get more projects off the ground.